Okay, it is 7:02. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance special meeting of November 30th, 2016. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda this evening is election of new members. So to the board, in your packets, I believe you've received letters of interest or resumes from 3 candidates. I see one of our candidates here. Are both of all three? I see one isn't.
Ed's here.
Hi, how are you?
I think Mr. Rando made it.
Okay. So you've had a chance to read what's been submitted to you. I'd ask the board, do you have questions of our candidates? If so, I'll ask you to approach the mic, please, so the board could address any comments to you one by one. Any comments from the board? Questions for our candidates?
Oh, no, I reviewed both applications and interest, and I thank you both for stepping forward. I'm impressed with both. I know Peter from running from the last election, and also know, he's been attending, and I'm also impressed with your background as well. And I'm kind of pretty much satisfied, unless there's anything each of you want to add that is not in your resumes that you want to. That's my comment, anyway.
Gentlemen, any questions for the candidates?
No, I concur. They both look like good candidates. They both look like they have strong financial backgrounds and business dealings, and that's all. I just agree.
Thanks. Jason, anything?
Same.
Okay. Camille?
I too want to thank the two of you that are here this evening, as well as Mr. Rando, who put forward his letter of interest. I would say that you're both very qualified to join our board, but I did have a couple of questions for each of you just to help me come to a final decision this evening. So I don't know who wants to go first, perhaps.
Peter, would you like to approach the mic? Please state your name and address for the record.
Peter DeRosa, Lover's Lane in East Lyme.
Both Lover's Lane.
Oh, Lover's Lane.
Thanks.
Lover's Lane is in.
I still bought the house,
Hi, Mr. DeRosa. Thanks for coming.
Good evening.
I noticed on your letter of interest. I noticed in your letter of interest that you stated the ability to work across party lines and balance financial constraints with the needs of the town is critical. And I couldn't agree with you more. So my question to you is, do you have perhaps a specific example of maybe an incident where you stood on principle even though it may have gone against your party?
When I've stood on principle,
Something perhaps that you didn't agree with your party, but you stood firm on the issue based on principle?
I can't think of an example town because I haven't been in a decision-making role with the town, but in my work, I'm always compromising principle and needs of patients, needs of institutions, needs of the system, needs of funding versus need. Those are kinds of things that happen kind of almost on a daily basis in the work that I do, dealing with patients in hospital settings. We have funding constraints and patient needs, and what's best for the patient, what's best for the program, what's best for the hospital, what's best for the finances. So yeah, I've cringed and made decisions many times. I've looked at people straight in the eye and have represented views that I don't agree with because it's in the best interest of whatever I'm representing at the time. I think in terms of the Board of Finance, I've been coming to the meetings here and I've watched the board operate, and I haven't seen I've seen the interest being common, in balancing the needs of the town with the financial constraints. I think that's a big challenge, and it's huge, and I don't know that everybody's always satisfied with those kinds of decisions. I think that there has to be compromise, and there has to be kind of going back to what's in the best interest of the town. It may not be in the best interest of the special interest group that's bringing forth the thing. It may not be in the best interest for the environment or for, you know, public safety or something like that. So those are difficult decisions, and
Very good. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think the most important thing to remember is, you know, if we're affiliated with a party in town, you know, we have to remember that our first and foremost responsibility is to the taxpayers of the town.
Right.
So there will be lots of influences perhaps coming your way, our way, that we just have to make sure that we always keep in mind what's in the best interest of the town.
yeah, I feel that being on the board is representing the best interest of the town, not the best interest of the party.
Right. Okay, very good. And I would like to acknowledge that I have seen you for the past year, maybe even 18 months, coming to our meetings, and I really appreciate your trying to learn what goes on before hopping on board.
Thank you.
In all the times that you've attended our meetings, is there anything that you've witnessed that you would like to see our board do differently? Not a trick question, and if we're
No.
perfect, we'll take that as an answer.
I'm not going to say perfect. I'm not going to answer at this point. I've seen some things go on, some long-standing issues that, you know, get talked about and then need to be addressed in terms of review of processes, review of how things are done. You know, I think there needs to be some tightening up, and I understand with a volunteer board and understand with a lot of different systems that that's not always happening, but I'm
Very good. Okay,
going
thank you.
to stay careful.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. DeRosa?
No.
Okay. So I
Well, thank
also
you.
would just say, too, Peter, thanks for coming to meetings over the past year or so. That is certainly a statement of your interest in the board, and I appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Laura?
Well, I think the same questions, right? We wanted to learn
Did you have any, Bev?
it. No, I thought you guys
No, I'm
wanted to
good.
ask the,
Okay.
Same
Hi, Mr.
questions.
Laura, how
Hi.
are you?
Good. Ed Laura, also 94 Lovers Lane in East Lyme. As far as the question about the parties and standing behind, I've kind of watched and followed, not live here, but the decisions that the board has made over the years, and I am in agreement with that the town comes first. I don't really, a lot of times, vote always party line, you know, with my office or over the years. I look at the candidates, I look at the issues, and then make a decision based on the individual and what they're going to do, not because of the party. I mean, a lot of people are, especially old school, some are, that's the party, that's it. I have some people in my office that are that way, and I'm just not that way. I believe I'm fairly open-minded, and you have to hear all sides. All right. I've been an owner of my practice since 1992. Had a partner until about 2006. I've been on my own for about 10 years. There's 12 people in my office. It's an accounting firm. We're dealing with clients. We're dealing with my employees, you know, different personalities, it's tough to run a business nowadays, you know. The health insurance laws, just the IRS rules, you know, so there's daily challenges with that. As far as having an opportunity to serve on the board, my time has only become free lately. I have my daughter, youngest, is in college now, so I have 3 in college, so I have much more free time. I coach wrestling here in town. I've been the wrestling coach for 9 years, been involved with that, but now I have more time, and talking to a couple other people in the Republican Party, Patrick Hughes approached me, as a friend of mine, and asked me about this, and, you know, and I know Mr. Nickerson for many years, and so with the opportunity to serve the board at this time in the town, I thought it would be a good experience. I think I have something to offer to the board as far as my experience and my, you know, other affiliations and the boards that I've been on in the past. And it's also a good time because it gives me a 1 year or 1.5 year commitment to start to get a good feel for if it's something that I am good at and that I can contribute to and that I do like. So, which I think is important, because just jumping in for a 4-year commitment, I think is difficult. And for any of you that have done it before, I commend you on it. But this is a good opportunity also to get in and, like I said, commit, contribute back to the town. I've been here for 22 years, so.
Yeah,
So it
I
was a good time.
agree that your qualifications are really, really good, and I have no doubt that you would be a good fit for this board. I would say that one concern that I have, though, is that given the nature of your business, I would imagine that the busiest period for your firm is January through April or May. And that happens to coincide with the busiest time of this particular board as we progress through the budget season. So how would you manage the concurrent workload during those 4 or 5 months?
Tax season, wrestling season, and now Board of Finance. And tax season and wrestling season are also very busy times. I actually looked at the agenda for the meetings from last year, and most of the meetings were on either, I believe, Wednesdays or Mondays, and in the evening. Your meetings are always in the evenings. So the nice thing that I have is I can take work home, okay, which I do a lot. I also work on Sundays. So if I'm stepping up to make the commitment, I can stick to the commitment. I wouldn't be here if I didn't feel that I could. All right, that's number one. And I've done it for many years with wrestling. And people even ask, how do I do it with wrestling? Well, like I said, I can bring work home. I can go back to work at night. I don't necessarily have to have somebody sitting in front of me where it's normal 8:30 to 5 business hours. I leave early, I go back, I do what I have to do. I make my appointments around my schedule. So I set up my schedule first and then have the ability to work around it. So I kind of work it the other way.
I see that you have a lot of extracurricular activities, so to speak. with
Not too many.
charity.
The only one right now is the Center for Hospice Care.
Board of Directors for Big Brothers, Big Sisters?
That's passed.
That's passed.
Yeah, there's no longer a board, Big Brothers Big Sisters in southeastern Connecticut. I was on the board like 10 years ago. So those are a lot of the affiliations passed. The only one that I have right now
Is the
is the
wrestling.
center. Oh, the wrestling.
Okay.
Wrestling's done. I just came from there. The only reason tonight is now I have an assistant coach, which I didn't have up to this point for this year. So we're working that out. Wrestling's usually done at 6 o'clock. Wednesday nights are my matches, and Saturdays. I asked again Mark about Saturdays. You guys never meet on Saturdays, or very rarely, because you want it available for the public to meet. And the nights that you do have meetings, I'm available.
Okay. That's
So.
all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, gentlemen, thank you for your interest in being here, and if there are no other comments from the board, I will entertain a motion for nominations.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Peter DeRosa to fill the vacancy of Steve Harney.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second that. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying.
Do we
Well, you're just
open it for
entering-
additional nominations before we vote?
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any other nominations? Thanks
So
for
I'd,
that.
I'd like to nominate Ed Rowe for, I think his background is, he's got a good diverse background of both community involvement as well as the financial background.
Okay. Is there a second?
So, yeah, I'll second.
Second? Okay, so there's 2 nominations on the floor. So, the first nomination is for Peter DeRosa. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
Well, I guess
Abstain?
I'd say nay, since I would be going with.
Nay?
Nay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 3-2. Sounds like
Right.
Peter's it.
Come on
Congratulations.
down.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank
Yeah.
you for
And
coming.
thank you very much.
So we bring Peter up to be seated?
He needs to be sworn in.
Okay,
Right.
right?
So,
I could do that,
Okay,
can you do that?
if that's your pleasure to do that tonight.
sure. Won't take long, right?
I think Lover's Lane is well represented tonight.
I expect to see
All
both
we need
Lovers
is Mike
Lane in the
Schmidt
fall
here, and
running.
We'll be all set.
Thank you for your
You
interest.
too.
Thank you,
Peter.
Mr. Laura.
Thank you.
Make it a Lovers Lane board.
So,
Thank you.
so we'll swear you in,
Okay.
okay? So if you raise your right hand, you solemnly affirm that you will faithfully discharge according to law your duties to the best of your ability, so help you God.
Well, there's
Congratulations.
always other things that need to
Thank
be
you, Mark.
considered, I think.
Good.
Is there a spot down there for
Yep,
Peter?
we got one down here.
Okay, great.
Boy, this is so nerve-wracking.
Thanks, dude.
Gender split.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
next item on our
It's like an
agenda is
eighth
the
grade
election
dance.
of chairman. I think at this point is when I turn the meeting over to you, Mark, is that right?
That can sometimes happen.
Okay. Is there any other alternative? If there is,
Well, no, let's do it that way, because that's typically how it's been done in the past.
okay,
So I can open up nominations for chair.
okay.
Are there any nominees to be chair?
I'd like to make a nomination. I think since I've been on this board and kind of consistent with everything we've been talking about, Lisa's done a stellar job trying to bring all the newbies on board. I think she's communicated really well. She's been chairman more often than not since I've been here. So based on past performance and her helping getting us up to speed, I'd like to nominate Lisa.
Well, thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
I don't think I'm going to be interested in that, but thank you very much.
Is there a second? I have a nomination
appreciate
for
your
Lisa
confidence.
Picarazzi. Is there a second? Last call. Is there a second? That nomination is not seconded and it falls. Is there another nomination?
I'll nominate Camille Alberti. Camille's done a great job over the years. She's always prepared for meetings. She's asked the tough questions. She's got the leadership the board needs, and I support her for chairman.
Okay, I have a nomination for Camille. Is there a second?
Second,
Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Beth. Is there any other? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? I'll move that the nominations are closed, and we have one nominee. So all in favor of the motion for Camille Alberti to be chair, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you very much.
So, Madam Chair, I'll hand the meeting back over to you, and I think you can conduct the meeting much the same way for the secretary.
Very good. So the next item on our agenda is to elect the secretary. Before we get started with that, I would like to suggest that we change the title secretary to vice chairman, because when we did a little research and looked at the roles and responsibilities of a Board of Finance for Connecticut, it was very confusing about the recording secretary versus the board secretary. So in order to just alleviate any confusion, I'd like to keep the recording secretary separate from a vice chairman position.
Was that the recommendation from the state?
No, but that is in the bylaws of several different boards of finance commissions throughout the state of Connecticut. That's the term that they use.
Okay.
So I would like to.
I don't know what term we use here, though.
Yeah, I don't
Or
know if it's in
even
our
writing,
charter.
or if it's just.
I don't know if it's in our charter,
I mean, I
or
don't
if
have
we
any
should change your
objection.
bylaws officially. We may want to, let's maybe choose this secretary as it is on your agenda tonight. We can maybe investigate that with the town attorney, or just look up
Sure.
in the charter,
Well,
because that,
yeah, no,
because
I
every
can
other
s-
commission in town has a
Yeah.
secretary,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
vice chair.
have
Yeah, I
vice
can
chair.
speak to that more during the board comments, but for purposes of this evening, we'll keep it at
Right,
I
secretary.
would suggest that, based on the
Okay.
agenda you have.
So
I'd like to nominate Lisa Picarazzi as secretary, if you'll take that.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know second, but I just,
No,
you didn't take the chair, so.
thank you.
Can I at least second you for that one?
Thank you, Bill. I would gladly accept that.
Are there any other nominations for secretary this evening? Are there any other nominations for secretary? Having no further nominations, we will vote on Lisa Picarazzi as Secretary for the Board of Finance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the support of the board.
Yeah.
Because you know how to run the machine.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Before we get further, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge Steve Harney's service to the town of East Lyme. He's been a member of the Board of Finance for the past 7 years. He served as chairman for the past 2 during some very difficult times. Steve has a pulse on this community like nobody I've ever known. I am proud to call him a good friend, an excellent mentor, and we'll miss him greatly. So good luck to you,
Yep.
Steve,
Thank you,
out there
Steve.
with your
Yeah.
southern escapades. Okay, with that, we'll start with new business. Item A is a special appropriation and transfer of $2,250 from contingency for the is that purchase or purpose of tax collection? Finance accounting bridge. Okay, would you like to speak to that, Anna?
Yes, so the company that we have our tax software with, they offer a bridge that can be set up to communicate between the tax collection system and your accounting software system. Currently, every time the tax department does a cash receipts batch, they bring it down to us, paperwork, and then a member of the finance staff manually enters that into the system. What the bridge will do is it will populate the entries, and then once we get the paperwork, we just review it for accuracy and post it. So it'll eliminate the keying in, and sometimes when you're keying in, errors are made, and when we go and do the reconciliations, we find those errors and have to correct them. But this way, it would be more efficient, more accurate. And so, they approached me and asked me if, said, well, if you do it now, it's typically $5,000. We'll charge you $4,500. You can pay half this fiscal year and the next half after July 1st. And so I thought it was worth considering, and in particular to get it up and operating for our collection period in January, because this way, it's a smaller, it'll get us accustomed to it. And then in addition to that, one of our problem areas is when we do tax refunds and when the tax department does an adjustment, they tend not to bring us that paperwork, and so those entries don't get done until we go through the reconciliation process, and it's more time consuming to go after the fact and get that documentation. So if the entries are automatically populated, we'll be able to keep up on them, I think better. So anyways, I just thought I did plan to put it in the budget for next year, but then in thinking about it, if I put it in the budget next year,
You won't have it until July.
we won't
can't
have
do
the
anything.
money until July,
Yeah.
so we won't be able to get it installed and working until after July. So this way we'll take small steps and then hopefully be fully functional, come the 1st of July. And actually, we do about 900 batches a year to process tax payments, and in July, 200 of them are done, and in January, 134. So you can see by the total volume, those are actually our busiest, times of the year. So that's why, I just thought I would bring it before the board and see if there was any way you would agree at this point in time.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I did. If you were to do this the way you normally do this by hand, how many hours would it typically take, given you're going to find errors and you're going to go through the process 2 or 3 times?
You know what? It varies depending on how the batches come in. So
Rough order of magnitude, are you talking about saving 100 hours or 1,000 hours?
I'm not really sure.
Okay. I'm
Does-
just trying to find something to compare the $2,500 against.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it
Or the
is.
2250, right? I mean, if you're gonna save $3,000 by
Right.
spending 2250, it's a no-brainer. If you're gonna save $100 by spending 2250, well,
Well, it would be
Not
more
so
than,
much.
it would be more than 100.
and less than 3,000, right? So I'm just trying to get a feel for where in that ballpark
Right.
is it?
Right.
Is
Well,
it-
you're improving efficiency, you know, you save staff
Creating
time.
more time,
And-
it's hard to measure
well,
that.
But on the other side of it, you know, cash receipting and banking is changing. Now, when you get into more forms of automated, you know, deposits and such, that it's changing the way that staff member works. So if we can have some assistance to free up some time with doing the data entry and the keying in, it'll help to make up for the extra time that's being needed to spend on more electronic banking activities.
Okay, so I'll ask the question a little more generic then. Do you see this being do you see this as being a cost savings? At the end of the day, is this gonna end up making the
I
department more
believe
efficient?
so.
Okay,
I believe
that's
so, yes.
Close enough. But I mean, it doesn't have to be a real number, but I mean, it feels like it's a cost reduction.
It will be.
Okay, thank you.
How does the software work? It populates our tax burden for each lot, and then when the payment comes in, it matches it up?
Well, what's gonna happen is, on the tax side, when they do their entry to post the batch,
Yeah.
the tax information is tied to whether it's current taxes, current interest in liens, prior year taxes, and prior year interest in liens. So on their side, all of those items have a special account number.
Right.
And we have an account number on our revenue side for
Right.
those items. And so those are the accounts and the dollar amounts that are populated from the tax batches.
Okay.
So like you have 100 payments in a
Right.
tax batch, and at the end of the day, we get four to six numbers from them that have to be posted on our side.
Right.
But we get them in the form of 900 batches a year.
Right. Okay.
So what'll happen is in you know, the data processing world, they'll link
Automatically.
that batch information from the tax side to the revenue account numbers on the finance.
And now
accounting
you do
side.
it manually?
Yes.
That's got to save some time.
think
I mean,
it's
I
more
don't
of
know.
I think it's more of a quality issue, and there's probably
Right.
less rework because
Right.
you probably.
Like
Human
Errors.
error,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
And-
because
Priceless.
you know,
Right.
if we
And
make an error on in our department of keying in the incorrect number,
Right.
when we do the reconciliation at the end of the month, we have
Right.
to go and take the time to go and figure out why it happened and produce more paper so that
Right.
correcting entries can be accomplished. So this way, if it comes over
Right.
all populated, there'll be less of those errors, and that saves. That is where like a huge savings will come.
The software, you're going to buy the software. Do they set it up? Do they populate your tax burden list, or does
It's
you
a
have to then
program.
make somebody?
It's done with a module from a module of programming that makes both sides talk to each other.
So,
So this module exists, it's not custom
Right.
code for our particular accounting software and tax software?
Correct. So what's gonna happen is, if this gets approved, then I will contact our accounting software company and tell them that a representative from Walsh, I'll give, you know, the programmer's name, that they'll be contacting them to set up the bridge within our system to populate those entries.